In the midst of a grand intergalactic summit, representatives from across the cosmos gathered, each bringing their unique technological prowess, culture, and insights. To these beings, Earth was a backwater, filled with creatures ruled by emotions and a sense of morality so limiting it bordered on weakness. In the eyes of the alien leaders, humans were soft. They saw empathy, ethics, and adherence to rules as signs of an inferior species, suited for menial roles if they were useful at all. The Alien Alliance had long debated whether Earth even warranted attention, convinced that the species lacked the fortitude to survive in a universe governed by strength and dominance. Still, a sense of scientific curiosity lingered among some, particularly those who sought to dissect and understand the evolutionary paths that could lead to such flawed development. To them, humanity was an experiment gone awry, and at this summit, they casually discussed Earth as if it were little more than a trivial topic, a sideshow in the grander plans of the universe. Then, Earth's representative arrived. Unlike other alien diplomats adorned in emblems of their power and authority, the human envoy was, by comparison, remarkably unassuming. The man before them, calm, quietly observant, with refined features that hinted at something unique, was introduced as Dr. Hannibal Lecter. The aliens exchanged glances, unsure of what to make of this figure. After all, they expected Earth to send someone of notable stature or military prowess, not this subdued figure who seemed to carry an unsettling air of confidence and restraint. As the meeting progressed, the aliens continued to ignore Lecter, dismissing him as an insignificant envoy. But Dr. Lecter, with a slight, knowing smile, observed them all. His silence was his strength, a weapon sharpened by decades of understanding the intricacies of the human psyche, a skill he now turned toward his alien counterparts. With each passing hour, he absorbed their languages, studying their gestures, analyzing their cultural nuances, and mapping their vulnerabilities with an almost surgical precision. Lecter's entrance into the summit was not a signal of diplomacy but an exercise in silent subterfuge. Through his conversations, seemingly mundane questions and casual remarks soon planted seeds of doubt among the leaders. In private exchanges, he would comment on the apparent strength of certain alliances, subtly suggesting that others might not be as loyal or transparent as they seemed. With a carefully calculated expression of sympathy, he would listen as alien leaders divulged grievances against their own allies, grievances he deftly noted and later used to stoke underlying tensions. Alien leaders began to notice, yet too late, that their discussions, once cooperative, were now riddled with suspicion. Small misunderstandings grew into pointed accusations, with leaders second-guessing each other's motives. Lecter had stirred the pot subtly, each interaction leaving behind a residue of unease that festered over time. He knew exactly how to nudge each figure into a corner where paranoia flourished and rational thought began to erode. During one particular discussion, an alien leader from a species known for their strength mentioned their belief in direct confrontation. Lecter, with his usual calm demeanor, noted how noble such an approach was, remarking, however, that he'd heard whispers of an opposing faction within the alliance that preferred indirect methods. It was a slight nudge, a gentle prod, but it sparked an argument that escalated rapidly. By the time Lecter withdrew from the conversation, the alien leaders were exchanging accusatory glares, suspicion festering in every word they spoke. And while they argued, Lecter observed, carefully noting every fractured relationship, every insecurity, and every overconfident display. With his insights into psychology, he recognized that each species, for all its advancements, shared a fundamental similarity with humans. They, too, were susceptible to pride, insecurity, and the destructive power of distrust. Lecter's mask of humanity was perfect, gentle, unassuming, and diplomatic on the surface, but every word was a scalpel, every smile a deception. In truth, the aliens had invited a predator into their midst, one whose refined manners and calm demeanor hid an unmatched savagery. For all their technological advancements and biological differences, they could not detect the calculated cruelty beneath Lecter's charm. As the summit continued, factions began to splinter subtly, each leader harboring suspicions that their counterparts were plotting behind their backs. Lecter took note of each rift, each hesitance in their voices, and stored them in his memory, a weaponized archive of alien insecurities. Lecter's initial observations had been successful, but the subtle manipulation that followed was a masterpiece in psychological warfare. He approached alien leaders individually, tailoring his demeanor and choice of words to suit each one's specific psychological weaknesses. His exchanges were polite, casual even, but with each comment, he planted seeds that would bloom into suspicion and paranoia. With each interaction, Lecter sowed distrust among the ranks, delicately crafting his web. The commander of a militant species known for its strength found Lecter particularly agreeable, impressed by his calm demeanor. During their conversation, Lecter casually mentioned that another alien species had once expressed envy over their military prowess. He suggested, almost as an afterthought, that perhaps this envy could lead to sabotage. The commander's reaction was subtle, a slight narrowing of the eyes, a pause in conversation, but Lecter knew the impact of his words would grow over time. To another leader, from a species known for its tactical genius and analytical mindset, Lecter offered a seemingly innocent observation about the summit's structure, subtly implying that the militant species might consider forceful domination over clever strategy. This alien, accustomed to power through intellect, was unprepared for Lecter's implications and left the conversation with newfound wariness of the military faction. Lecter's manipulations weren't random, they were precise, targeted. Each comment was calibrated to play upon existing tensions between species, exacerbating natural frictions. Through indirect questioning and thoughtfully placed comments, he exposed each faction's latent fears and amplified them. Soon, every faction within the summit began to see potential enemies among their ranks. The discord grew, spreading through conversations, glances, and hesitant decisions. Some leaders tried to deny the doubts creeping into their minds, but Lecter's influence was pervasive. His subtle suggestions acted like poison, seeping into the collective consciousness of the alien alliance. As their focus shifted toward defending themselves from perceived threats within, the cooperation that once defined the summit began to dissolve. Lecter watched from the sidelines as his handiwork unfolded, the internal conflicts gradually escalating. Misunderstandings turned into full-blown arguments as factions accused each other of betrayal and deceit. Leaders who once considered each other allies now treated every interaction with suspicion, their cooperative spirit replaced by a palpable tension. One particular conversation with an alien known for its wisdom became pivotal. Lecter hinted, in a tone laced with respect, that a neighboring faction had been whispering concerns about this leader's authority, questioning whether their wisdom had become outdated. The leader's face betrayed only a flicker of anger, but the doubt planted by Lecter took root. Soon, whispers of insecurity began to spread, weakening the respect and influence this leader once held. Lecter's strategy involved no outright lies, only strategic truths presented with a hint of suggestion. Each alien leader left his presence with a new concern, a freshly awakened distrust of those they had previously respected. Slowly, these alien leaders began holding clandestine meetings with their closest advisors, questioning the loyalty of their counterparts and preparing contingencies in case their suspicions were validated. At this point, the alliance's unity was in shambles. Alien leaders who had once worked seamlessly began placing spies within each other's ranks, intercepting messages and planning for an inevitable confrontation. Lecter watched with satisfaction as his manipulations transformed a unified summit into a nest of conspiracies and backstabbing. The transformation was complete when a minor skirmish broke out over an imagined slight, escalating far beyond reason. It was the crack Lecter had been waiting for, the first sign of open conflict within the ranks. Alien leaders began maneuvering troops and resources, not to combat humanity but to guard against each other. At that moment, Lecter knew he had succeeded. He had turned the alliance against itself, creating a state of paranoia so deep that it rendered any future collaboration impossible. Lecter continued to observe, letting the chaos run its course. What had once been a unified council of powerful species had splintered into factions ruled by suspicion and fear. For all their technological and strategic advancements, they were now as vulnerable as any prey facing a skilled predator. Lecter had observed his plan evolve with perfect precision, but he knew it was time for the final act. He extended an invitation to key alien leaders for an exclusive banquet, framing it as a gesture of goodwill from Earth. The idea of an Earth representative hosting such a grand affair intrigued the aliens. They attended, drawn by the curiosity and the sense of diplomacy they believed this human sought to project. Upon entering the hall, each leader was greeted by an elegantly arranged table filled with a feast that rivaled the finest displays of culinary art known to them. Yet something about the setting was unusual, unsettling. Lecter, taking his place at the head of the table, invited his guests to sample the delicacies presented. The dishes were sumptuous, meticulously crafted to appeal to each alien's culinary preferences. As the banquet unfolded, Lecter engaged each leader with polite conversation, subtly reminding them of their positions and the tenuous relationships they held with each other. His words were calm and inviting, his manner gentle and engaging, but the undertones of his dialogue carried an eerie familiarity that left some guests feeling uneasy. Lecter's every phrase was deliberate, chosen to stir faint echoes of the paranoia that had already started to consume them. At a certain point in the meal, Lecter leaned in, complimenting the alien leaders on their species' physical distinctions and unique flavors. A flicker of confusion crossed the faces of some guests, but Lecter continued, dropping slight hints in his tone and phrasing. Gradually it dawned on them that the textures and aromas of the dishes weren't just masterful in execution, but disturbingly recognizable. Lecter's compliments became more sinister, his smile lingering as he described certain courses with words that subtly indicated an unthinkable possibility. Realization spread like wildfire among the guests, their expressions shifting from intrigue to mounting horror. Lecter had been feeding them their own fallen comrades, skillfully prepared to deceive even the keen senses of each alien species. Shock turned into silent panic as they exchanged glances, confirming the unspeakable truth. Lecter's calm demeanor persisted, his gaze moving from guest to guest as he relished in the growing terror that rippled through the table. No words were exchanged, but the fear was palpable, an invisible force permeating the hall as each leader grasped the extent of the trap they had walked into. Unable to restrain his satisfaction, Lecter finally addressed them, his words an unsettling blend of humor and mockery. He pointed out the irony in their earlier judgments of humanity's softness and naivete, emphasizing how little they truly understood about human capabilities. His voice was calm, almost warm, as he explained that humans were masters not only of warfare but of psychological terror. For centuries, humanity had survived and thrived by understanding the fears of others, learning to weaponize trust and turn it into a tool of devastation. Lecter's speech only deepened the horror within the alien leaders, each one grappling with the knowledge that their alliances, their loyalty, and even their own perception of strength had been expertly dismantled. In Lecter, they hadn't encountered an ambassador or a diplomat but a predator who'd quietly manipulated them into a corner from which escape seemed impossible. The implications of his words echoed through the hall, his subtle insinuations lingering in the minds of his guests, eroding their remaining resolve. Lecter observed the chaos that ensued, watching as one leader demanded explanations from another, accusing them of betrayal and deception. Another tried to rise, only to be restrained by a compatriot convinced of a hidden plot. Within moments, the carefully held composure of each leader shattered, and the banquet transformed into a scene of absolute disorder. Lecter sat back, content to let the disarray take its course. What had begun as a carefully orchestrated diplomatic event had spiraled into a frenzy of accusations, threats, and even violence among the once formidable alien leaders. The fractures Lecter had planted in their minds blossomed into full-blown paranoia, consuming them from within. The alien leaders no longer trusted each other, no longer viewed the alliance as a symbol of their power but as a liability, a vulnerability that could be exploited. As they turned on one another, Lecter remained a silent observer, his satisfaction evident in the slight smile that played across his lips. His work was done. The alien alliance was in shambles, its leaders broken, its unity shattered beyond repair. One by one, the alien leaders abandoned the banquet, each retreating to their factions with the chilling realization that the humans, despite their initial appearance of weakness, had outmaneuvered them in a way they had never anticipated. They left Earth's envoy with a deep-seated terror, a fear that would follow them beyond the banquet hall, casting a shadow over every future decision they made. Lecter had shown them a side of humanity that they could neither understand nor counter, and as they departed, each alien species harbored a newfound respect and fear for the species they had once deemed insignificant. As the final guest exited, Lecter remained in the hall, the remnants of the meal before him a testament to the chaos he had orchestrated. His purpose fulfilled, he allowed himself a final moment of reflection, satisfied that he had left a lasting impression on the most powerful beings in the universe. As the last of the alien leaders left, Lecter allowed himself a moment of silent satisfaction. The Alliance, once a powerful force, was now a fractured mess, each faction haunted by fear and paranoia that Lecter had masterfully sown. His work was complete, but there remained a final step to ensure that the alien leaders left Earth's orbit with a message they would never forget. With calm confidence, Lecter sent a diplomatic communique to the departing ships, leaving them with words that, though few, struck like a well-placed dagger. In his message, Lecter acknowledged the strength and intellect of the alien species, but he pointedly reminded them of humanity's hidden strength, the ability to think beyond the physical, to manipulate and understand fear. He phrased it as a warning, a dark reminder that humans were far from the soft, inconsequential beings they had once assumed. His words were chillingly polite, his tone unsettlingly respectful, but the underlying threat was unmistakable. Lecter made it clear that any future attempts to undermine humanity would be met with consequences that went beyond war or weaponry, consequences that would target the mind, erode trust, and dismantle unity from within. The message spread across the alien ranks like wildfire, instilling a new and deep-seated fear. Though they didn't discuss it openly, each leader understood the implications, realizing that Lecter had left them with scars that went beyond the physical realm. They had experienced a form of psychological warfare they could neither understand nor counter. To confront humanity again would mean facing not just their technology or armies but a relentless intelligence capable of eroding them from the inside out. Lecter's influence lingered within each faction, manifesting as silent, pervasive doubt. Every Alliance member now harbored suspicions, questioning the loyalty of their own kind, fearing that at any moment, their allies might turn against them. The unity they once displayed now felt flimsy, easily shattered by a few well-chosen words. Each alien leader returned to their home world carrying this unease, burdened by a constant sense of paranoia that Lecter's message had instilled. Back on Earth, Lecter returned to his cell without fanfare or acknowledgement, the details of his mission known to only a select few. The general public would never learn of his role in securing humanity's safety, nor would they ever know the extent of the chaos he had sown in the heart of an intergalactic alliance. But for those who knew, Lecter was regarded as a silent, unsettling hero, one who had saved humanity not through force, but by exploiting weaknesses his enemies didn't even realize they had. His victory was not measured in battles won or enemies defeated but in the silent erosion of a powerful alliance, a victory achieved through intellect alone. As Lecter settled into the familiar solitude of his cell, he reflected on the events with quiet satisfaction. He had redefined the terms of humanity's strength, proving that the true power lay not in brute force but in understanding the mind, in using fear and doubt as weapons. The aliens, for all their technological advancements and strategic brilliance, were left in shambles, crippled by a human whose intellect they had underestimated. In the end, it was not Earth's armies or weapons that had brought them down, it was the mind of a single man who had turned their perceptions against them, making them victims of their own assumptions. In the days that followed, whispers of Lecter's success circulated among the few in the know, a tale of how one man had saved Earth without lifting a finger. Though his methods were disturbing, his effectiveness was undeniable. To those who understood, he was more than a mere diplomat, he was a protector, a figure who embodied the hidden resilience and cunning of humanity. The alien alliance never returned, their leaders too shaken to risk another encounter with a species capable of such devastating subtlety. Humanity remained safe, protected by the haunting reputation of a single man who had shown them the cost of underestimating Earth. And as Lecter sat alone in his cell, a faint smile touched his lips, a reminder that he had left an indelible mark on the universe. A mark forged not in bloodshed, but in fear, doubt, and the silent power of a mind unleashed.